Your prayers for help have been rejected because you were designed for dominion. Visualize the end of your struggle. See every past debt, every bill, every financial failure not as a tragedy, but as the training ground for the authority you are about to assume. You have been taught to ask for wealth. Today, you will learn how to command it. This isn't another mindset trick. This is the divine prayer that the wealthy have guarded the sequence that makes you the master. Napoleon Hill studied the men who used this power, but he never revealed the prayer itself. The era of begging is over. The era of your financial reign begins now. You have been in the waiting room of your own prosperity for too long. You have sat in the silence of unanswered prayers, wondering if your voice reached heaven at all, or if the ceiling of your small apartment absorbed every desperate plea before it could rise. You have watched others receive their breakthrough while you remained in the same financial prison, counting the same bills, dodging the same calls from debt collectors, carrying the same shame when you have to decline invitations because you cannot afford the dinner, the gas, the appearance of normalcy. You have asked yourself the question that echoes in the dark hours before dawn, why not me? And in the asking, you believed you were being humble. You believed you were being faithful. You believed that if you waited long enough, if you prayed hard enough, if you proved yourself worthy enough, the breakthrough would finally arrive. But the silence you interpreted as abandonment was not rejection, it was preparation. The divine does not delay to punish you. The divine delays to position you. What you mistook for being forgotten was actually the receding of the shallow waters before the tsunami of your financial reign arrives. And I need you to understand something right now. Before we go any further, the season of begging is complete. What comes next is not another lesson in patience. It is not another sermon about waiting on God's timing. It is the activation of your authority, the transfer of power that you were always meant to receive but could not hold until this very moment. The waiting was not wasted. The waiting was the forge. And you are about to discover that every financial failure, every humiliation, every night you cried over an empty bank account was not evidence of your unworthiness. It was the training ground for the dominion you are about to assume. You were never designed to ask for crumbs. You were designed to command the banquet. And the reason your previous prayers felt powerless is because you were using the language of a servant when you carry the bloodline of a sovereign. The wealthy do not pray for money, they command it. They do not hope for abundance, they authorize it. They do not wait for permission, they issue the decree and then enforce it with unshakable conviction until reality has no choice but to comply. And tonight, you will learn the exact sequence they have used in secret, the divine prayer that Napoleon Hill studied but never fully disclosed, because he knew the world was not ready for the weight of this truth. He called it the secret. He hinted at it in every chapter. But he never gave you the prayer itself, the exact words and the exact sequence that transforms a desperate plea into a sovereign command. But you are here now. You have endured the preparation. You have survived the silence. You have been tested in the fire of financial lack, and you did not break. You bent? Yes. You questioned? Yes. You doubted yourself and doubted heaven and doubted whether any of this was real. But you are still here, and that survival has qualified you for what comes next. This is not a motivational speech. This is a transfer of authority. This is the moment your financial identity shifts from beggar to commander, from victim to sovereign, from one who waits to one who decrees. The prayer you are about to receive is not a request, it is a verdict. And once you speak it, once you seal it with the conviction of absolute certainty, the universe has no choice but to obey. Let me be clear about what is required of you. You cannot approach this with the same passive faith that kept you waiting in the church pew, hoping someone else would pray the breakthrough over you. You cannot speak these words while secretly doubting they will work, while preparing the backup plan in case this is just another false promise. The divine prayer operates on a frequency of absolute command, and if you bring hesitation to the altar, you will receive hesitation in return. This is not cruelty. This is law. The universe responds to the intensity of your conviction, not the volume of your need. Desperation repels abundance because desperation carries the frequency of lack. Authority attracts abundance because authority carries the frequency of dominion. And the first law you must master to unlock this divine. Prayer is the law of singular focus. You have been scattering your prayers like seeds in a hurricane and then wondering why nothing grows. You pray for a better job on Monday. You pray for a sudden windfall on Wednesday. You pray for your bills to disappear on Friday. You light a candle for a miracle on Sunday. And each prayer cancels the one before it, because you are treating the divine like a vending machine instead of a kingdom that requires a clear, unbreakable decree. Napoleon Hill called this principle definiteness of purpose, but let me translate it into the language of dominion that the wealthy understand. The universe cannot deliver $1 million flood if you are still building a dam of $100 doubts. Wealth demands one order. Doubt is a second master, and you cannot serve both. You cannot command the tsunami while simultaneously building a shelter in case the tsunami doesn't come. The preparation for failure is the guarantee of failure. Here is what the wealthy understand: that you have been denied. They do not pray for more money. They command a specific sum by a specific date for a specific purpose. They do not ask for financial peace or better circumstances or a little extra to get by. They decree the exact amount required to eliminate every debt and create the surplus that transforms their bloodline. They do not hope for abundance. They sign a contract with reality, and they enforce that contract every single day with the discipline of a general and the faith of a prophet until the evidence appears. This is not visualization. This is legislation. You are not imagining a better future. You are authoring a new law in the spiritual economy, and that law must be enforced with relentless, unbreakable focus until the physical realm has no choice but to conform to the decree. So the first command I give you is this: you will choose one financial outcome, not 3, not 5, 1. You will write the exact dollar amount. You will attach it to a specific date, not someday, not eventually, but a date on the calendar that you circle and declare as the deadline for the universe to deliver. You will define the purpose with such clarity that when the money arrives, you will know exactly where every dollar is assigned, what debt it eliminates, what door it opens, what future it creates, and you will reject, with the force of a divine veto, every thought that suggests a different outcome, every voice that whispers, "But what about this other need?" You will silence every fear that screams, "You should focus on something smaller, something more realistic." You will veto. This is not wishful thinking. This is the activation of your singular focus, the first seal that must be broken to access the divine prayer. Because here is the threat you must understand. And I say this not to frighten you, but to protect you from wasting another year in the waiting room. If you ignore this law, if you continue to scatter your prayers like a desperate gambler throwing coins at every slot machine, hoping one will pay out, your divine prayer will scatter like dust in the wind, and the financial rain that was prepared for you, the tsunami that was building momentum in the unseen realm, will pass you by and settle on someone who gives a singular, unbreakable command. The universe is not withholding your wealth out of cruelty. It is waiting for you to stop asking for everything and start commanding one thing. Scarcity thrives on fractured attention. Sovereignty demands singular focus. And until you master this, until you plant your flag on one outcome and refuse to move until it manifests, you remain in the waiting room while others walk into the throne room. Now, I can feel the resistance rising in some of you. You are thinking, "But I have so many needs. How can I focus on one outcome when my life is drowning in lack? I need to pay rent. I need to fix my car. I need to buy groceries. I need to catch up on 3 months of bills. How can I focus on one thing when everything is urgent?" And this is exactly the trap that keeps you poor. This is exactly the frequency that the enemy of your prosperity uses to keep you paralyzed. The poor focus on survival. The wealthy focus on dominion. The poor count their bills. The The wealthy count their commands. And the moment you shift from managing lack to decreeing abundance, the moment you stop trying to patch 1,000 holes and start commanding one flood that will fill every hole simultaneously, the universe recognizes the frequency of a commander and begins to rearrange the evidence to match your decree. This is not magic. This is alignment. This is the first law of the divine prayer. And let me show you what this looks like in the life of someone who understood it. There was a man who came to Napoleon Hill with 17 different financial goals. 17. He wanted a new car because his current one kept breaking down. He wanted to pay off his mortgage because the bank was sending foreclosure notices. He wanted to fund his daughter's education because she had been accepted to a good school, but he had no savings. He wanted to start a business because he was tired of working for someone else. He wanted to take his wife on a vacation because they hadn't been away together in a decade. He wanted to fix his teeth because he was embarrassed to smile. He wanted to buy better clothes because he felt like a failure every time he looked in the mirror. 17 goals, 17 prayers, 17 desperate pleas scattered across the altar of his desperation. And Hill looked at him and said, "You will receive none of it." The man was offended. He felt judged. He said, "But I am being faithful. I am covering all my needs. I am not being greedy. I am just trying to survive." And Hill responded with the words that changed the man's life. "You are not faithful. You are fractured. Faithfulness is singular. Fracture is plural. Choose one. Command it with everything you have. Receive it. Then command the next." The man resisted at first. He argued that all 17 needs were legitimate. And Hill said, "I did not say they were not legitimate. I said they were competing. And in the competition, all of them lose." So the man finally surrendered. He chose the business. He wrote the amount, $50,000. He attached the date, 6 months from today. He defined the purpose, to open a storefront that would generate passive income for his family and eliminate the need to beg for wages. And he rejected, every single morning, every thought that suggested he should focus on the car or the mortgage or the vacation. He vetoed them. He said, "Those will come after the business. The business is my singular focus." Within 4 months, not 6, the money appeared, and it did not appear from a lottery ticket. It did not appear from a distant relative who suddenly died and left an inheritance. It appeared from a series of orchestrated events that only a singular focus could magnetize. A former colleague reached out with an investment opportunity. A business loan that had been denied twice was suddenly approved. A mentor he had lost touch with offered to co-sign for equipment, and within 4 months, the $50,000 was assembled, the business was launched, and within the first year, every single one of the other 16 goals was met. Not because he prayed for them, but because the singular focus on the business created the flood that filled every empty space in his life. This is the power of the first law. This is the frequency of the divine prayer. And if you have made it this far, the activation is already seeking you. So let me ask you directly, are you ready to stop begging and start commanding? Are you prepared to choose one outcome, write the exact amount, set the exact date, and veto every distraction until the evidence appears? If the answer is yes, if you are prepared to sign the 16, contract with your future. I need you to prove your presence. I need you to type one word in the comments right now, Commander, because your signature on this contract is not symbolic. It is the first act of enforcement. It is the moment you tell the universe, I am no longer the one who waits. I am the one who decrees. And once that word is written, the second seal begins to break. You have focused the command. You have chosen the one financial outcome that will shift everything. You have written the amount, circled the date, defined the purpose with laser clarity. But focus alone is not enough, because the moment you make your decree, the enemy mobilizes. And that enemy is not external. It is not the devil. It is not your circumstances. It is the voice of doubt that lives in your own mind, the voice that has been whispering poison into your prayers for years, the voice that says, this is too good to be true. This will never work for me. I am not smart enough. not connected enough, not worthy enough to command this level of wealth. And if you allow that voice to speak unchallenged, it will veto your command before the universe has a chance to obey it. So, the second law you must master is the law of absolute conviction. Napoleon Hill called this faith. But let me be clear about what this is and what it is not. This is not hope. This is not positive thinking. This is not the shallow affirmation you repeat while secretly preparing for failure. This is military-grade certainty. This is the knowing, in your bones, in your blood, in your breath, that your command is already done before the evidence appears. Doubt is financial treason. Let me say that again so it reaches the part of you that keeps sabotaging your prayers in the final hour. Doubt is financial treason. Every time you speak your decree in the morning and then whisper to yourself in the afternoon, "But what if it doesn't happen?" you are committing treason against your own sovereignty. You are telling the universe, "I do not actually believe my own command." And the universe, which is not cruel but is lawful, responds by saying, "Then neither do I." This is why most prayers fail. Not because God is withholding the blessing, not because you are unworthy, but because you are retracting the command before the delivery system can complete the transaction. You are signing the contract and then ripping it up before the ink dries. The wealthy operate from a different frequency. They do not hope their investment will succeed. They know it is already successful, and they are simply waiting for the timeline to catch up to the truth they have already seen in the spiritual blueprint. They do not believe their business will grow. They have already witnessed the growth in the unseen realm, and they are enforcing that blueprint in the physical realm with unshakable conviction. When obstacles appear, they do not interpret them as evidence that the command was wrong. They interpret them as the final test, the universe asking, "Are you certain? Are you absolutely certain? Because if you are, I will remove every obstacle. But if you are not, I will use these obstacles to expose your doubt and redirect the blessing to someone whose conviction is strong enough to hold it." This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is the veto of absolute conviction, the second seal that transforms your prayer from a request into a decree. Here is the command. You will speak your financial outcome aloud every morning, not in the language of hope, but in the language of certainty. You will say, "It is already done." Not, "I hope it will be done." Not, "I believe it can be done." But, "It is already done." You will feel the relief of the outcome before the evidence arrives. You will practice the gratitude of the fulfilled promise while you are still in the season of lack. You will write thank you letters to the divine for the money that has not yet appeared in your bank account but is already in transit in the spiritual economy. And you will veto, with the force of a divine gavel, every thought that suggests otherwise. This is not denial of your circumstances. This is conviction in a higher reality. This is the enforcement of your command. Because here is what Hill discovered when he studied the men who built empires from ash. They did not succeed because they had more talent than their competitors. They did not succeed because they had more resources or better connections or easier circumstances. They succeeded because they operated from the knowing that their success was inevitable, and they refused to acknowledge any evidence to the contrary. They did not see obstacles as stop signs. They saw them as the final test of their conviction. And when the test was passed, when they held their conviction steady in the face of delay and setback and mockery, the floodgates opened. Not because the universe suddenly decided to bless them, but because their unwavering conviction finally completed the circuit that allowed the blessing to flow. Let me give you the proof that will anchor this law in your spirit. There was a moment in Hill's research when he interviewed a man who had lost everything in the Great Depression. His business was gone. His savings were wiped out. His reputation was shattered. His family looked at him like he was a failure. And Hill asked him the question that anyone would ask. How do you rebuild from this? How do you start over when you have nothing? And the man said something that changed Hill's entire understanding of wealth. He said, I am not rebuilding. I never stopped building. The physical evidence was destroyed, but the spiritual blueprint is still intact. And because I know the blueprint is intact, because my conviction in that blueprint is unbreakable, the physical will have no choice but to reconstruct itself to match the original design. Hill thought the man was delusional. He thought the man was in denial. But within 2 years, the man was wealthier than he had been before the collapse, not because he worked harder than everyone else who lost everything, but because his conviction was unbreakable, and that conviction magnetized every opportunity, every connection, every resource required to rebuild the empire. This is the frequency of the divine prayer. This is the veto of absolute conviction. And if you ignore this law, if you allow doubt to creep into your morning decree, if you speak the command and then spend the rest of the day rehearsing all the reasons it might not work, you are signaling to the universe that your previous command was a lie, and the financial rain that was prepared for you will be redirected to someone whose conviction is strong enough to hold the blessing without sabotaging it. Conviction is not optional. It is the military force that enforces your singular focus. It is the guardian that protects your command from the sabotage of your own mind. It is the second law that seals the first law and prepares you for the third. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I can feel the objection rising in your chest. You are saying, but I have used faith before. I have believed before. I have spoken positive affirmations and visualized abundance and declared victory over my finances, and the money still didn't come. Or worse, it came for a moment and then disappeared in the next crisis. I got the promotion and then lost the job. I got the windfall and then faced an emergency that wiped it out. What if I command this wealth with everything I have, only to lose it again? What if this divine prayer works temporarily but doesn't create the permanent financial rain you are promising? And this is the objection that keeps most people locked in the cycle of temporary victories and permanent lack. So let me address it directly, with the clarity and authority you need to hear. You lost it because you were asking, not commanding. You lost it because you treated wealth as a gift that could be taken away instead of a dominion that you enforce daily. A beggar fears losing the blessing because a beggar believes the blessing came from external mercy, and external mercy can be withdrawn. A commander knows how to retake territory because a commander understands that wealth is not a gift, it is a frequency, it is a law, it is a dominion that must be enforced with unbroken vigilance. And the difference between a temporary windfall and a permanent financial rain is the third law, the law of unbroken dominion. Napoleon Hill called this persistence, but let me translate it into the language of sovereignty that you need to operate from. The divine prayer is not a single shot. It is not a one-time activation that you perform and then forget about. It is the daily password to your authority. It is the relentless, unbreakable enforcement of your command, regardless of what the temporary evidence suggests. Persistence is not defense. Persistence is offense. And this is where most people misunderstand what Hill was teaching. They think persistence means enduring the hardship, gritting your teeth through the delay, white-knuckling your way through the storm while silently hoping it ends soon. That is not persistence. That is survival. And survival is the frequency of the poor. Persistence, in the language of dominion, means attacking every single day with the renewed force of your original command. It means waking up and declaring the outcome as if you are issuing orders to an army that must obey. It means holding the frequency of wealth even when the bank account screams poverty, even when the bills pile higher, even when every external voice tells you to give up. Adjust your expectations. Be realistic. Accept your limitations. The universe will test you. Let me say that clearly so you are not surprised when it happens, so you do not interpret the test as rejection. The universe will test the resolve of your command. It will delay the evidence longer than you think is reasonable. It will send obstacles that seem designed specifically to break you, tailored to your deepest insecurities. It will whisper through the voices of people you love, people who genuinely care about you, that maybe you should try a different approach. Maybe this is too risky. Maybe you should be grateful for what you have instead of reaching for what seems impossible. And in that moment, when the test arrives dressed as wisdom, your response determines everything. If you yield, if you adjust the command to make it smaller and more acceptable, if you soften the decree to make it more palatable to the voices of doubt, you fail the test and the financial rain moves to someone whose resolve is unbreakable. But if you hold the line, if you say with unshakable certainty, I do not care what the temporary evidence suggests, my command stands, my conviction is law, and I will enforce this dominion until reality complies, then the test ends and the floodgates open. Hill studied men who lost fortunes and rebuilt them larger than before. He studied men who faced bankruptcy and emerged wealthier than they had been at their peak. He studied men who were mocked, rejected, dismissed as delusional, and then watched as those same men proved everyone wrong, not through luck, but through the enforcement of unbroken dominion. And the one pattern he found in all of them, the thread that connected every success story, was this: they did not yield, they did not break. They did not adjust the command to match the temporary circumstances. They held the frequency when holding the frequency felt insane. They enforced the dominion when every logical voice told them to surrender. And unbroken dominion proved their commander status was non-negotiable. This is the third law. This is the final seal before the divine prayer is delivered to you in its complete form. Here is the command for the law of unbroken dominion. You will speak your decree every morning without exception. Not when you feel inspired, not when you see progress, not when circumstances improve. Every single morning, regardless of what happened yesterday, regardless of what the bank account shows today, regardless of what crisis emerged overnight, you will enforce the frequency. You will hold the line. And when the obstacles come, when the delays stretch longer than you expected, when the voices of doubt rise louder than your own conviction, you will not interpret this as evidence that the prayer is not working. You will interpret it as the final test, and you will say these words aloud: this is the test. This is the universe asking if I am certain, and I am. My command stands. My dominion is unbroken. The rain is inevitable. I do not yield. I do not break. I am the unbroken authority, and it is done. And then you will continue as if the evidence has already shifted, because in the spiritual economy, it has. Let me show you what this looks like in the life of someone who understood it at the cellular level. There was a woman Hill interviewed who commanded a specific sum, $100,000 by the end of the year, to launch a business that would employ women in her community who had been rejected by every other employer because of their criminal records, their age, their lack of formal education. She wrote the decree with precision. She spoke it every morning before her feet touched the floor. She held the conviction with military discipline. And for 6 months, nothing happened. No opportunities appeared. No investors called. No doors opened. Her bank account did not grow. Her circumstances did not improve. Her family told her she was wasting her time playing games with the universe when she should be working a real job. Her friends suggested she seek therapy because they thought she was having a breakdown. And every single morning, she stood in front of the mirror and said, $100,000 by December 31st. It is already done. My conviction is law. I veto all doubt. Reality bends to my decree. In the 7th month, a woman she had never met walked into her church during a Wednesday evening service and approached her after the prayer and said, I do not know you, but I have been praying about where to invest a sum of money that came to me unexpectedly, and for 3 weeks I keep hearing your name in my prayers. I do not know what you need it for, but I know I am supposed to give this to you. That woman wrote a check for $50,000. 2 weeks later, a business grant she had applied for 8 months earlier, a grant she had completely forgotten about because the rejection rate was 97%, was approved for $30,000. In the final week of the year, a former employer who had laid her off 3 years prior during a company restructuring reached out and said, I have been carrying guilt about how we let you go. You were loyal and excellent, and the layoff was about our budget, not your performance. I want to make it right. And handed her a personal check for $25,000, $105,000, not by December 31st, by December 28th. Not because the universe decided to be merciful in the final hour, but because her unbroken dominion created a magnetic field so powerful, so unwavering, that every resource required to fulfill the command was pulled into her reality by the sheer force of her relentless conviction. This is the power of the third law. This is what it means to hold the frequency when the evidence screams otherwise. And if you ignore this law, if you speak the command for a week or a month and then give up when nothing changes, if you allow the delay to convince you that the divine prayer does not work for people like you are proving to the universe that you are not ready for the financial rain. Because the rain is not for those who hope. It is for those who command. It is not for those who try. It is for those who enforce. And enforcement requires unbroken dominion, the relentless, daily, non-negotiable activation of your authority until the physical realm has no choice but to conform to the decree you have issued. Now, before I give you the divine prayer itself, I need to address the voices in your head that are preparing to sabotage this before you even begin, because I know what you are thinking right now. I can feel the resistance rising in some of you, the old beliefs pushing back, the fear disguised as wisdom trying to protect you from disappointment. So let me dismantle the objections one by one, because if I do not, they will poison the prayer before you even speak it, and you will walk away from this moment still trapped in the frequency of lack. The first objection I hear constantly, the one that haunts people who have been raised in religious shame, is this: but what if I am not good enough? What if I have made too many mistakes, carried too much sin, wasted too many opportunities? What if God is withholding the blessing because I do not deserve it, because my past disqualifies me from this level of abundance? And let me respond to this with the authority of someone who has studied the lives of the wealthy and the blessed for decades. Your past has nothing to do with your eligibility for the financial rain. Nothing. The divine does not operate on a merit system where you earn abundance by being perfect. The divine operates on a frequency system where you receive abundance by aligning with the law of dominion. Every billionaire Hill studied had a past filled with failure, moral compromise, and devastating mistakes. Every empire builder had a history of bankruptcy, betrayal, and broken relationships. The difference is they did not allow their past to veto their future. They understood that the command is not about deserving, it is about decreeing. You do not earn the right to command wealth. You assume the authority and then enforce it regardless of your history. Your worthiness is not determined by your past behavior. It is determined by your present conviction. The second objection is this, and it is the one that keeps intellectuals trapped in poverty. But what if it is just my imagination? What if this is just positive thinking dressed up in spiritual language, and I am setting myself up for another devastating disappointment? And here is the truth you need to hear, the distinction that will free you from this paralysis. Positive thinking is not the same as sovereign command. Positive thinking hopes for a better outcome. Sovereign command decrees a specific outcome and enforces it until reality complies. Positive thinking is passive, wishful, tentative. Sovereign command is active, authoritative, unbreakable. Positive thinking says, maybe things will get better if I stay optimistic. Sovereign command says, I have issued the decree, reality is already rearranging itself to match my command, and I will hold this frequency until the evidence appears. So no, this is not your imagination. This is not a mind game. This is the activation of a law that has been operating since the foundation of the world, a law that the wealthy have used to build empires while the poor sat in church pews hoping for miracles they never learned to command. The third objection, and this one is rooted in the trauma of previous failures, but my faith is not strong enough. I have tried to believe before, and it did not work. I have spoken affirmations and visualized abundance and declared breakthrough, and nothing changed. What if I cannot hold the conviction long enough for this to actually work? And let me tell you something that will liberate you from this lie that has been imprisoning you. Faith is not a feeling. Faith is a frequency. You do not need to feel certain every moment of every day. You need to act certain even when you do not feel it. You do not need to. Eliminate all doubt from your mind. You need to refuse to obey the doubt when it speaks. Every morning when you speak your decree, you are not checking your emotional temperature to see if you feel faithful enough. You are issuing the command regardless of how you feel, and the repetition of the command builds the frequency that attracts the evidence. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start acting as if you are already authorized, because you are. The authority was given to you at birth. You are just now learning how to use it. The fourth objection, and this one is the most dangerous because it masquerades as realism. But the obstacle is too big. The debt is too large. The gap between where I am and where I need to be is too wide. It is mathematically impossible. I would need a miracle, and miracles do not happen to people like me. And this is where the story of David and Goliath becomes essential to your understanding. David did not look at Goliath and think, "This giant is 9 feet tall, and I am a teenager with a sling. This is impossible." He looked at Goliath and thought, "This is the test that will prove my authority. This is the giant that will make my name known." The bigger the enemy, the greater the testimony. The size of the obstacle is not evidence of impossibility. It is evidence of the size of the breakthrough that is coming. The bigger the giant, the greater the demonstration of divine power when it falls. The larger the debt, the more powerful the testimony when it is eliminated. Stop interpreting the obstacle as evidence that you should quit. Start interpreting it as evidence that you are being prepared for a financial rain so large that a small test would not be sufficient to prove your readiness. And the final objection, the one that haunts people in the middle of the night when they are alone with their doubts. What if God is saying no? What if this is not His will for me? What if I am supposed to learn contentment in lack instead of commanding abundance? What if poverty is my cross to bear, my character-building tool, my lifelong lesson in humility? Let me answer this with a question that will shatter this theology of lack. Do you believe you were created in the image of a God who commands galaxies into existence with a word, who speaks and matter obeys, who decrees and reality conforms? Then why would that same God design you to beg for pennies? Contentment is not the same as resignation. You can be grateful for what you have while commanding what you were designed to receive. The divine does not want you poor so you can learn humility. The divine wants you wealthy so you can fund the kingdom, employ the community, break generational curses, and demonstrate what dominion looks like to a generation that has been taught to beg for scraps. Poverty is not a virtue, it is a frequency, and you are about to shift frequencies. Pause here. Close your eyes if you are in a place where you can do so safely. Feel the weight of what has just been dismantled. Every excuse, every fear, every voice that told you this would not work for you, that you are not the type of person who commands wealth, that you should lower your expectations and accept your limitations, all of it has just been vetoed. And in this silence, in this sacred pause before the divine prayer is delivered, I want you to feel something shifting in your spirit. The old identity is dying. The beggar is being buried, the victim is being retired, and what is rising in its place is the commander, the sovereign, the one who was always meant to rule over finances instead of being ruled by them. Breathe into this moment. Breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the oxygen of certainty. Exhale slowly, releasing the carbon dioxide of doubt. This is not just information you are receiving. This is transformation you are experiencing. And the silence you feel right now is not emptiness. It is not the absence of God. It is the presence of the divine, confirming what you have just claimed, sealing what you are about to enforce. Stay in this space. Do not rush past it. 30 seconds. Feel the authority settling into your bones, into your bloodstream, into the core of your identity. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is you stepping into the frequency that the wealthy have occupied for centuries, while the rest of the world begged for crumbs from tables they could have owned. You are not begging anymore. You are commanding. And the universe is listening. The divine is responding. And your financial reign is no longer a distant hope. It is an imminent reality. Now, let me give you the divine prayer, the activation sequence that seals everything we have built over the last hour. This is not a prayer you speak once and forget. This is not a magic spell that works regardless of your conviction. This is the daily password to your authority, the frequency you hold, the command you enforce until the evidence appears in your physical reality. But before I give you the exact words, I need to give you the context, the environment, the posture, because the power of the prayer is not in the words alone. It is in the totality of the activation, the alignment of your body, your breath, your voice, and your conviction into one unified decree. Tonight at exactly 11 p.m., you will prepare the environment. You will stand before a mirror, the largest one in your home. Not sit, stand, because a commander does not sit when issuing orders to an army. You will turn off every light except one, a single lamp that illuminates your face so you can see your own eyes clearly. You will silence your phone completely, not vibrate, off. You will close the door to the room, lock it if necessary. This is a divine appointment, a meeting between you and the frequency of abundance, and you will treat it with the reverence and seriousness it deserves. You will look into your own eyes, and you will see not the person who has been struggling, not the victim of circumstances, but the person who is about to enforce a new reality. You will see the commander, you will see the sovereign. You will see the one who was always meant to inherit the financial reign, but was taught to beg instead. You will breathe deeply, 3 times. The first breath, you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts. This is the breath of preparation, the signal to your nervous system that something significant is about to happen. The second breath, you inhale courage, you hold conviction, you exhale doubt. The third breath, you inhale authority, you hold certainty, you exhale every lie you have ever believed about money and your relationship to it. And then you will assume the posture of a commander. Shoulders back, not slouched in defeat, spine straight, aligned with the authority of heaven. Chin level, not lifted in arrogance, not lowered in shame, but level with the confidence of someone who knows their decree is law. This is not symbolic. This is physiological. Your body must align with the frequency of dominion before your words can carry the weight of command. And then you will speak the divine prayer aloud. Not in your head, aloud. Your voice creates vibration, and vibration creates reality. You will speak it 3 times, with increasing intensity. The first time, you speak it with clarity, making sure every word is pronounced with precision. The second time, you speak it with conviction, allowing the emotion of certainty to rise in your chest. The third time, you speak it with the absolute certainty of someone who is not asking for permission, not hoping for favor, but issuing a decree that reality must obey. Here are the words: "By the authority of my divine nature, I reject the illusion of lack. I veto the evidence of scarcity. I am not asking for wealth. I am the sovereign commander of money, and I now command all channels of abundance to flood my reality. I decree the sum of speak, your specific dollar amount, by speak your specific date for the purpose of speak your specific outcome. This command is final. My reign is inevitable. I reject all other outcomes. My conviction is law. I veto all doubt. Reality bends to my decree. I do not yield. I do not break. I am the unbroken authority. This is not a request. This is a verdict. My reign is authorized. My word is law. It is already done." After you speak it the third time, you will not immediately move on to the next task. You will sit on the floor, legs crossed if possible, hands open on your knees in the posture of receiving, not clenched in desperation, but open in expectation. And you will sit in absolute silence for 5 minutes, not 4, not 6, 5. Set a timer if necessary. And in this silence, you will not visualize how the money will come. You will not strategize the steps you need to take. You will not plan the backup plan in case this does not work. You will do only one thing. You will visualize and feel the relief of the outcome already being present. You will feel the weight lifting from your chest when the debt is eliminated. You will feel the freedom in your body when the financial pressure is removed. You will feel the gratitude rising in your throat for the divine intervention that has already occurred in the spiritual realm and is now making its way to the physical. This is the seal. This is the moment the command is locked into the spiritual economy, and the universe begins the process of rearranging every resource, every connection, every opportunity required to deliver the evidence to your physical reality. But the activation does not end there. Tomorrow morning, within 1 hour of waking, before you check your phone, before you read the news, before you engage with any external input, you will open a journal or a notes app on your phone, and you will write one sentence at the top of the page, "Evidence of my command." And then you will find and record one piece of evidence, no matter how small, that the universe is responding to your decree. A text message from someone you have not heard from in months, a refund you were not expecting, a job listing that matches your skills perfectly, a conversation that opens a door you did not know existed, a feeling of peace about your finances that you have not felt in years. The evidence will be small at first because the universe tests whether you are paying attention, whether you are serious about holding the frequency. But as you record the evidence daily, as you train your mind to recognize the compliance of reality to your command, the evidence grows. This is the system of proof. This is the daily audit that transforms your waiting into a testimony. In the first 30 days, you will see small shifts, unexpected money, usually under $500, opportunities that require you to act, not just wait, conversations that shift your perspective, doors that crack open just enough for you to see what is possible. This is the activation phase. The universe is testing your response. Will you dismiss the small evidence as coincidence, or will you record it as proof that the command is working? Your response determines the speed of the delivery. In the next 60 days, the shifts become undeniable. Larger sums appear. The specific amount you decreed begins to assemble itself from multiple sources. The people you need to meet appear in your path. The skills you need to develop become available. The obstacles that seemed permanent begin to dissolve. This is the acceleration phase. The universe has confirmed that you are holding the frequency, and it is now moving every piece into position. By 90 days, if you have held unbroken dominion, if you have spoken the decree every morning without exception, if you have recorded the evidence daily, if you have refused to yield when the test came, the financial reign is established. Not because 90 days is a magic number, but because 90 days of unbroken conviction builds a frequency so powerful that reality has no choice but to comply. This is the cycle. This is the timeline. This is the evidence that your commander status is no longer theoretical. It is operational. You are no longer the person who walked into this moment. That version of you, the one who waited in silence, who begged for breakthrough, who accepted lack as a permanent condition, died in the silence 30 minutes ago. What rises in its place is not an improved version of the old you. It is a completely different identity, operating on a completely different frequency, authorized to access a completely different reality. You are no longer the one who asks. You are the one who commands. You are no longer the one who hopes. You are the one who decrees. You are no longer the one who waits for permission. You are the one who issues the verdict. And this shift, this death and resurrection of your financial identity, is not symbolic. It is actual. It is permanent. And it begins the moment you enforce the divine prayer for the first time tonight. But I need to give you one more system, one more structure that will ensure the command you issued does not weaken over time. Because here is what happens to most people after they experience a moment of conviction like this. They speak the prayer with power on the first night. They feel the shift. They see the small evidence in the first few days. And then, somewhere around day 10 or day 15, when the evidence is still small and the obstacles are still large, doubt creeps back in. The old voices return. The fear disguised as wisdom starts whispering that maybe this was just emotional hype. Maybe you got caught up in the moment. Maybe you should lower your expectations before you get hurt again. And in that moment of wavering, the frequency drops, the command weakens, and the financial rain that was building momentum in the unseen realm slows to a halt. So I'm going to give you a system that prevents this collapse. I call it the system of evidence. And it is the difference between a temporary activation and a permanent transformation. Every single week, on the same day at the same time, you will conduct a formal audit of your command. You will open the journal where you have been recording daily evidence, and you will review the entire week. You will count how many pieces of evidence appeared. You will notice patterns. You will observe how the universe is responding to your frequency. And then you will write one paragraph summarizing the week's testimony, not in the language of hope, in the language of proof. This week, the divine delivered 3 pieces of evidence that my command is in motion. A refund of $217 appeared from a source I had forgotten about. A conversation with a former colleague opened a door to a consulting opportunity, and a feeling of unshakable peace about my finances replaced the anxiety that used to wake me at 3 in the morning. The frequency is holding. The command is active. The rain is building. This weekly audit does 3 things that are absolutely essential to maintaining unbroken dominion. First, it trains your mind to recognize evidence that your previous frequency would have dismissed as coincidence. Second, it builds a testimony that you can return to when doubt attacks, concrete proof that the divine prayer is not theory but operational reality. Third, it creates accountability, a structure that forces you to stay engaged with the frequency instead of drifting back into the passive waiting that kept you poor for years. This is not optional. This is the military discipline that separates commanders from beggars. Commanders audit their territory. Beggars hope someone notices their need. And here is what will happen if you execute this system with precision. In the first month, you will have 30 pieces of evidence, most of them small but undeniable. In the second month, the evidence will grow in size and significance. Opportunities that seemed impossible will become accessible. People who never responded to you before will suddenly reach out. Doors that were locked for years will open without you even knocking. In the third month, the specific sum you decreed will begin to assemble itself, often from sources you never anticipated, through channels you did not even know existed. And by the end of 90 days, you will have a journal filled with testimony, a documented record of how the divine responded to your command with relentless precision. But this system only works if you combine it with the daily enforcement of the divine prayer. You cannot audit evidence that does not exist, and evidence only appears when you hold the frequency that magnetizes it. So let me be absolutely clear about the non-negotiable daily rhythm that sustains your financial reign. Every morning, before your feet touch the floor, before you reach for your phone, before you engage with the world's chaos, you speak the decree, you say the exact amount, you restate the exact date, you reaffirm the exact purpose, and you close with the words, "It is already done. My conviction is law. I do not yield." This takes 60 seconds. 60 seconds that separate you from the 97% who will wake up today and immediately surrender their frequency to fear, distraction, and the noise of lack. Every evening, before you sleep, you conduct the micro-audit. You open the journal. You write the date. You record the evidence, even if the evidence is as small as a moment of clarity or a conversation that shifted your perspective. And you close the entry with one sentence. The command is active. The rain is building. This takes 90 seconds. 90 seconds that ensure you fall asleep in the frequency of expectation instead of the frequency of anxiety. And while you sleep, while your conscious mind rests, your subconscious continues to broadcast the command into the spiritual economy, drawing every resource required to fulfill the decree into your reality. This is the rhythm. Morning decree, evening audit, weekly testimony. This is the structure that transforms a moment of inspiration into a lifetime of dominion, and this is what the wealthy do that the poor do not. The poor have moments of faith. The wealthy have systems of enforcement. The poor hope for breakthrough. The wealthy engineer inevitability. And you are about to join the ranks of those who understand that financial rain is not a gift you receive. It is a frequency you hold, a command you enforce, a dominion you protect with unbroken vigilance. Now, let me give you the final piece, the declaration that seals your new identity and makes it impossible for you to retreat back into the old frequency. This is not a prayer you speak to God. This is an oath you speak to yourself, a vow that announces to the universe and to every force that has kept you trapped in lack that the era of their dominion over you is finished. You will speak this oath immediately after the divine prayer tonight, while you are still standing before the mirror, while the conviction is still burning in your chest. You will speak it in first person, because this is not about what God will do for you. This is about who you are becoming, who you have always been, but were never taught to claim. Here is the oath. Speak it aloud, with the full force of your authority. I am the commander of my financial destiny. I am no longer the victim of circumstances. I am no longer the beggar at the table of abundance. I am the sovereign who decrees the outcome and enforces the reality. The waiting season is over. The rain has begun. I reject the identity of lack. I veto the testimony of scarcity. I am the one God has chosen to demonstrate what dominion looks like in this generation. My past does not define my future. My mistakes do not disqualify my authority. My doubts do not veto my decree. I am the unbroken commander. The wealth I have decreed is already mine in the spiritual realm, and I now command it to manifest in the physical. I do not ask for permission. I issue the verdict. I do not hope for favor. I enforce the law. I am the commander. I accept the reign. It is already done. After you speak this oath, you will feel something shift that is deeper than emotion. You will feel the weight of a new identity settling into your bones. You will feel the authority of a commander replacing the desperation of a beggar. And you will know, not because someone told you, but because you feel it in the core of your being, that you are no longer the same person who began this journey. The transformation is complete. The activation is sealed. And the financial rain is no longer a future possibility. It is a present reality that is making its way from the unseen realm to the seen. But transformation without action is just theory. And I am not here to give you theory. I am here to give you a kingdom. So let me give you your first order as a commander, an action you must take within the next 24 hours that will prove to the universe that you are not playing games, that you are not testing the waters, that you are fully committed to the frequency of dominion. This is not a suggestion. This is a command. And your obedience to this command in the next 24 hours will determine how quickly the evidence of your financial reign appears. Here is the order. Within the next 24 hours, you will speak a thank you aloud for a door that has not yet opened. Not a door that is cracked open. Not a door that is opening. A door that is still closed, still locked, still impossible by every logical measure. You will stand in front of that closed door, whether it is a physical door in your home or a metaphorical door in your mind, and you will say these exact words. Thank you for opening this door. Thank you for the breakthrough that is already mine. Thank you for the financial reign that is already established. I do not see the evidence yet, but I know it is in motion, and I receive it now with gratitude. This act of thanking God for something that has not yet appeared in the physical is the ultimate demonstration of unbroken conviction. It is the frequency of a commander who knows the decree is already done and is simply waiting for the timeline to catch up. Most people cannot do this. Most people can only thank God after the evidence appears, after the door opens, after the money arrives. And this is why most people remain in the waiting room. Because thanksgiving after the evidence is not faith, it is acknowledgement, but thanksgiving before the evidence, Gratitude for a closed door as if it is already open. This is the frequency that collapses time and pulls the future into the present. This is the act that proves to the universe you are operating from absolute conviction, not hopeful wishing. And when you execute this order within 24 hours, you will feel the shift. You will feel the resistance breaking. You will feel the momentum building. And the universe will respond with evidence that arrives faster than you expected, larger than you imagined, through channels you did not anticipate. So let me ask you directly, will you execute this order? Will you stand before a closed door in the next 24 hours and thank God for opening it? Will you prove your conviction with this act of faith? Or will you allow the voice of logic to convince you that this is foolish, that you should wait until you see some progress before you start thanking God for doors that are still locked? Because your answer to this question will reveal whether you are truly ready for the financial rain or whether you are still clinging to the identity of someone who needs to see before they believe. Commanders do not wait for evidence to act. Commanders act, and evidence follows. Beggars wait for evidence to believe, and beggars remain beggars. You are no longer a beggar. You are a commander, and this order is your first test. Now, before we close this activation, I need to speak to those of you who are feeling something rising in your chest right now, something that feels like certainty mixed with urgency, something that feels like you have been waiting your entire life for this moment, and you finally understand why the waiting was necessary. This feeling is not emotional hype. This is recognition. This is your spirit confirming that the frequency you have just accessed is the frequency you were always meant to operate from. And if you are feeling this, if the conviction is burning so intensely that you cannot ignore it, then I need you to do something right now that will seal this contract permanently. I need you to go to the comments and type 3 words, I am ready. Not I hope this works, not I will try this, but I am ready. Because those 3 words are not just a comment, they are a public declaration. They are a signature on the contract with your future. They are the moment you announce to the universe, to everyone watching, to every force that has kept you trapped in lack, that the era of begging is over and the era of commanding has begun. And once those words are written, once that declaration is made, there is no retreating. The universe holds you accountable to the frequency you have just claimed. The divine begins to move every piece into position to fulfill the decree you have issued. And your financial reign becomes not just a possibility, but an inevitability. So type it now. I am ready. 3 words that change everything. And if you are watching this and you know that this message was not an accident, that you were led here by a force greater than coincidence, that every struggle, every failure, every moment of financial despair was preparing you for this activation, then you need to do one more thing. You need to subscribe to this channel and activate every notification, because this is not the last time you will need to hear this frequency. The world will try to pull you back into the old identity. Your circumstances will test your conviction. The voices of doubt will attack in the middle of the night. And when that happens, you will need to return to this frequency, to be reminded of who you are, to be re-anchored in the authority you have claimed. This channel is not entertainment, it is enforcement. It is the community of commanders who refuse to beg, who reject the identity of lack, and who hold the frequency of dominion no matter what the temporary evidence suggests. So subscribe now, activate all notifications, and join the ranks of those who have stopped asking for wealth and started commanding it. And let me leave you with one final image, one final truth that you will carry with you as you step into the execution of the divine prayer tonight. The verdict has already been given. The trial is over. The judge has ruled in your favor. The financial reign you have decreed is not pending. It is approved. It is authorized. It is in motion. The payment is not coming someday. The payment is on the way right now, assembling itself from 1,000 different sources, moving through channels you cannot see, orchestrated by a force that responds to conviction with precision. You are not waiting for God to decide if you are worthy. You are waiting for the timeline to catch up to the decree you have already issued. The tsunami is not building. The tsunami has already formed, and it is moving toward your shore with unstoppable force. The only question that remains is this: will you be standing on the shore with your arms open, ready to receive the flood? Or will you be hiding in fear, convinced that the tsunami will destroy you instead of deliver you? Because the same force that terrifies the unprepared is the force that crowns the commander. The same wave that drowns the victim is the wave that carries the sovereign to the throne. And you are no longer the victim. You are the sovereign. You are no longer the one who fears the flood. You are the one who commanded it. The divine prayer is in your hands. The activation sequence is clear. The 90-day timeline is set. The system of evidence is established. The oath has been spoken. The order has been given. And your financial reign is no longer a distant hope. It is a present reality that is manifesting with every breath you take, every decree you speak, every piece of evidence you record. The waiting is over. The reign has begun. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop what you have set in motion tonight. Go now. Prepare the environment. Stand before the mirror at 11 p.m. Speak the divine prayer with unshakable conviction. Seal it with the oath. Execute the 24-hour order. Begin the daily rhythm. And watch as the universe rearranges itself to match the frequency of the commander you have become. The verdict is final. The payment is in motion. The reign is inevitable. You are the commander of money, and it is already done.